There is a kind of power that doesn't need to shout, a strength that lives in stillness. That is the horse. Carrying thousands of pounds of strength, yet choosing to walk with the gentleness of breath. They could outrun us all, but choose again and again to stand by our sides. Presence in its purest form, they hear the ache we try to silence, and somehow, without a sound, they're able to answer. To be seen by one is to be called home, to a part of yourself you thought was lost. And yet, right now, in the country they helped build, these deeply sentient beings are being chased by helicopters, ripped from their families, locked in pens, only to meet an unknown fate for themselves.
New at 6 from the 8 News Now investigators, new video seems to show BLM contractors using what advocates call questionable and abusive techniques to round up wild horses near Winnemucca. Now, we do want to warn you, before we show it, the video can be disturbing. As you can see here, the contractors...
Each year, thousands of wild mustangs are rounded up and removed from their lands. The trauma they endure leaves invisible wounds that mirror those I've seen in people. At the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, I've learned that the body remembers every joy, every hurt, and the same is true for the horses.
Let's adjust the camera for this one. Thank you, Buster. For those of you who don't know, Jody is the one who really helped me. She opened the door to any and all of the horse healings that I've been fascinated with. She opened the door for me to understand and realize mustangs in particular, but also the incredible power that horses are able to heal with. Jody's giving me and my mom a table session. I was openly curious. I was like, I have no idea what to expect from this, but let's do it. This was right at the beginning of year 4 for me. We had the table set up all in the center of the corral, and Jody's standing there. Buster comes up next to you, and I'm like just loving all over the horses a few feet away, and Buster literally takes his paw and starts beating on the table. And Jody goes, I think your session started. So then I get on the table, and very quickly, Buster immediately puts his head right between my feet, and I feel this chelation happening. This is year 1 Barbara Brennan's what we've learned. And honestly, it was that moment that I was hooked.
It turns out there's a real science behind what I was sensing. Horses don't just see us, they feel us. Their massive hearts generate electromagnetic fields that can entrain and calm our own. Their mirror neurons reflect our internal states, often before we're aware of them.
They have 4,000 times the mirror receptors that we do. So they get down to the itty-bitty
like
emotions.
One small eye twitch.
Exactly. And for whatever reason, they know where that trauma comes from, and that's where the metaphors show up. So it takes you to that childhood trauma that nobody even suspects anymore.
Through this co-regulation of nervous systems, healing can unfold, beyond words, beyond story.
I'm just seeing what they're showing me and what comes up for me.
As we learned at school, healing begins with presence, not with doing, not with fixing, but with being. Nowhere is this healing potential more needed than in the mustangs themselves, wild beings whose own trauma mirrors that of so many humans. When they are rounded up, they lose not just their freedom, but their bonds, their sense of safety, their sense of trust in the world. This is the work that I embarked upon, first with a young Mustang named Terrence.
This is Terrence. This is the first Mustang I worked with. Just a sweet boy. When I first met you, you'd never do that, right?
And then, with my very own rescue, Chiron, who turned out to be a mirror of me. I didn't choose Chiron, he chose me. At first, I was drawn to another horse, but it was Chiron, the one who wouldn't let anyone touch him, the one who kept his distance, who stood still for me. Something in him saw something in me. Jody looked at me and said, "That's your horse." He wasn't wild in breed, but wild in spirit, untouched by trust, confined for so long, shaped by survival. We don't know where he came from, but we know he came from a place where being himself wasn't safe. He would bite at love, turn away from connection. He had learned that closeness could hurt him. And in that way, he became a mirror. Like me, he had been molded, broken into an identity that was never his. A part of him, the essence of him, was buried. But through time, patience, and presence, I've watched that part return. In Barbara Brennan's work, we learn about the Hara line, our deep intentionality, our soul's purpose, the place where alignment begins. Chiron's Hara was bent under the weight of someone else's will, and so was mine. But slowly, together, we are realigning, trusting again, letting our true nature lead. And while he's not a Mustang, his heart is just as untamed, just as sacred, just as in need of remembering. I met with Connie Fries, who knows this truth deeply. Once trapped in her own trauma, now she devotes her life to healing Mustangs, and through them, the hearts of at-risk youth.
She's big too.
She's 16 hands.
Wow. Big
Okay.
girl.
I moved out to Colorado 10 years ago. I never saw a Mustang. I was a hunter jumper on the East Coast. That's what I grew up doing. I was 12 years old. My parents couldn't afford it anymore. And horses got ripped away from me at 12. So I moved to Colorado. And now I'm trying to finalize my divorce. We're talking about a span of like a year and a half, 2 years here. I walked into this lawyer's office in Uray. And he had all this horse stuff. He wrote down a number and he was like, "This lady just got seriously injured. She has horses on her property. She could use some volunteers." Wrote her name and number down. I called her. I went to Ridgeway. She had a Mustang on the property. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me. They're real?" Like, no, they're not really real. They're real. So I met a wild horse for the first time, and her name was Liberty. And it was in that moment when Alice started explaining what happens with wild horses and the roundups and being pulled away the family, that I was like, well, wait a second. I was arrested and ripped away from my family because I was abused and a heroin addict when I was 13 years old, and I spent most of my adolescence in facilities away from my family and away from everything I knew and loved, when all I really needed was love.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I connected with that wild horse, and Alice was like, "There's something really special about you. I want to introduce you to my trainer."
Healing goes both ways. As we show up for horses with presence, softness, and patience, they begin to open. But what's harder to see is how we begin to change too. Our nervous system slow, our hearts soften, and our truth rises to the surface. It's not just us healing them, they are healing us, especially the wild ones. Mustangs don't lie. They read everything, your breath, your tension, your thoughts, before you even speak them. And when trust begins to grow, they'll show you in whispers. A blink, a shift in weight, a breath released, a lick, a chew, the tiniest drop of the head. At first, it may not look like much, but when you start speaking the language of the horse, they start talking loud. These moments aren't just body language. They're signs of energy moving, trauma clearing, connection being built where there used to be fear. And when we're willing to meet them in that stillness, something sacred happens.
Yes, so they, give you a good lick and chew. And so when they're doing that during the middle of an energy session, when you're working energetically with them, it's an agreeing with the thought. So a lot of times people be on the table and they're not saying a thing, and the horse just goes, starts licking and chewing, and I'll be like, hey, so what were you thinking about?
She's got a little flare to her nostril, and she's gonna lick and chew any second. I would say this is a pretty typical calm beginning interaction with a wild horse. Usually they run around a lot, some of them, but I can tell she's wanting to release right now really bad. There she goes.
As I graduate from Barbara Brennan's School of Healing, I carry a deep knowing. The principles of energy healing and the wisdom of the horse are not separate paths. Together, they form a torch worth carrying, illuminating a way forward for both horses and humans. In every soft eye, every breath met with presence, I see it. A world where healing is relational, embodied, and guided by love. This is the work I choose, the life I honor, and the healing I will offer.